One of them got my hand down, and the other one had clippers, and got it around my thumb, and then...
Throughout the 8 months or so of me making videos on this channel, I've covered some really weird stories, peculiar matches, or even some of the worst people that the industry of professional wrestling has been unfortunate enough to house. While it's completely subjective on where you rank these stories, I can guarantee you that the one we're going to be talking about today is nothing at all like what you might be used to on this channel. One of the most notable deathmatch and independent wrestlers of the 2000s, and how a series of events led to him losing his thumb inside of his own home in 2002 in a case that has since gone beyond cold with no notable leads according to local police. However, many who know what went down leading up to the assault feel that it may not be the case, and they might have an idea on who it allegedly might have been, and that is what we will be discussing in today's video. This video is as a result of a poll I held recently in my community tab, and it blew every other option out of the water. If you would like to have a say in which videos are made on the channel, be sure to keep an eye out on my community tab for future polls. If you do enjoy this video and you want to see more videos about all the random and cool stuff that comes from pro wrestling, be sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. With that being said, let's get right into it. As usual, before we get into the real meat and potatoes of the story, we have to meet the individuals involved. The year is 1999, and Extreme Championship Wrestling has all the momentum in a world currently dominated by a ratings war between the two biggest companies in professional wrestling, the World Wrestling Federation, now known as WWE, and World Championship Wrestling. Based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, owner and promoter Paul Heyman has provided his ever-growing audience with a smorgasbord of different styles, resulting in a product with a bit of everything, ranging from some of the best technical wrestling in the world with wrestlers such as Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit, some of the best lucha libre with luchadors including the likes of Rey Mysterio Jr. and Juventud Guerrera, some of the best storytelling that you could ask for from wrestlers like Tommy Dreamer and Raven, as well as some of the best hardcore wrestling that you could see from a somewhat national level during this time. Wrestlers like New Jack, The Sandman, Sabu, and many others that I'm undeservingly leaving off of this list helped establish ECW as one of the most polarizing and popular brands of not only that era, but in the history of the sport itself. With this consistent surge of popularity, ECW was looking to expand its business outside of the East Coast, and due to this, we now get to meet this man. Meet Rob Black. Real name Robert Sakari, Black wears quite the number of hats. An entrepreneur, a pornographic director that owned Extreme Associates, a wrestling promoter, as we will see very shortly, and also to a much lesser degree possesses the worst cage match rating that I have ever seen, and this website has some real pieces of shit on it. Black was looking to help ECW expand further on the West Coast, and there was originally a deal in place for Black and Heyman to do just that. However, with ECW netting a deal with TNN in June of that year, Heyman cut ties with Black to avoid having to deal with the potential repercussions of working with someone in Black's field of work, so to speak. With the deal falling through, Black still wanted to bring pro wrestling to the West Coast and did so in his own way. July 21st, 1999, the day that Extreme Pro Wrestling was born. Following Black's failed attempt to get into ECW, he went on to create his own promotion where he could do all the violent and juvenile shit he wanted. Extreme Pro Wrestling, or XPW for short, was a deathmatch promotion originally based in Los Angeles, California, and served as somewhat of a challenger brand to ECW, so to speak, in an effort to spite Heyman for ducking out of their deal. While ECW is mostly known for their own brand of hardcore wrestling, they had other genres and styles of wrestling to break it up a little. XPW, on the other hand, was almost exclusively hardcore and deathmatch wrestling with not much else in between of note as it pertains to the in-ring portion of the company. The promotion was run by Black, and on top of the wrestlers he employed, he also frequently utilized actresses from his adult films, including wife Lizzie Borden, real name Janet Romano. Throughout the years, XPW would gain more momentum, especially as ECW closed its doors in early 2001, and with Combat Zone Wrestling still developing as a promotion at this time, XPW was widely considered by fans to be the #1 destination for hardcore wrestling in the US. XPW has a ton of different wrestlers who frequented ECW over the years, like New Jack, Sandman, Sabu, and Vic Grimes, while also incorporating some of their own guys to introduce to a relatively new audience like Supreme, Chaos, White Trash Johnny Webb, Homeless Jimmy, Dynamite D, as well as this man. Meet the Messiah. Real name William Welch, he began training in late 1996 under the aforementioned Dynamite D, another notable XPW named Carlito Montana, and began wrestling shortly thereafter under the ring name Iron Mike Earhart. I think that's how you pronounce that. According to an article written by SoCal Uncensored, Welch left pro wrestling in 1998 and moved to Georgia for a year before going back to LA in 1999 and coming across a commercial for XPW, recognizing names like Dynamite D, who had previously trained him. Welch officially returned to pro wrestling for XPW in 1999, wrestling under a mask and using the ring name The Blunatic, losing on multiple occasions to bodybuilder and former WWF and ECW wrestler Nicole Bass. Soon after, Welch would begin to use a gimmick known as the Messiah. Initially, the gimmick was supposed to be an anti-XPW, similar to how Right to Censor was against any crude material during the WWF's Attitude Era. While he intended to portray the character in this way, Rob Black decided that he wanted the guy to play Jesus Christ himself. And no, I am not kidding you. Black was so committed to this idea that Welch was billed as Jesus in his first appearance with XPW. In 2000, the Messiah began his feud with Sabu in what has since been touted as possibly the biggest rivalry in the short history of XPW, during which he won the two biggest titles in the company, the King of the Deathmatch Championship, his first championship in pro wrestling, and the World Heavyweight Championship, holding both at the same time and solidifying himself as both the top wrestler in XPW as well as one of the top independent wrestlers on the West Coast. At the Damage Inc. event on August 25th, 2001, the Messiah was scheduled to defend the world title in a tag match where he would team with Rob Black. No, Rob Black is not a trained professional wrestler, and this would be his only match, against Josh Lazy and Sabu, where if Sabu lost, he would have to leave XPW. The match did happen, but it happened without the Messiah. The night of the event, a video played at the start of the show featuring Rob Black and a figure meant to be the Messiah in a really shitty visual, even for an independent company in 2001 standards, essentially writing off the character by sending him back to heaven in what is remembered as one of the segments of all time.
Messiah, you can't go. I need you tonight. Everything is on the line. What are you thinking? What are you thinking?
And just like that, the Messiah was no longer a part of XPW. Oh, and by the way, the person that the Messiah was referring to in this promo, who he left for Rob Black, is Johnny Webb, who had successfully teamed with Black that night to not only become the XPW World Heavyweight Champion, but also ending Sabu's time with the company. This wasn't a bullshit story either, this was legitimately Sabu's last match for XPW. For those who don't already know the story, I think the main question on everyone's minds at this moment in time is something to the effect of, what the fuck happened? Where did the Messiah go? Why did he leave XPW? Well, the week before the event, Rob Black had learned that Welch had engaged in an affair with Black's wife, Lizzie Borden. Following this revelation, Welch was fired from both XPW and its parent company, Extreme Associates, never to be heard from again. At least in XPW. After doing some work with the Millennium Pro Wrestling promotion in Southern California, along with other smaller promotions, the Messiah made his surprise debut for Combat Zone Wrestling, which had grown exponentially in popularity since the formation of XPW and established itself as one of the top indies in the entire country on January 12th, 2002. XPW also ran a show on that day titled New Year's Revolution 2, but just like a lot of the content that XPW had produced as of late, it was a complete and utter disappointment to the majority of fans, and they were losing whatever goodwill they might have at that moment. Not that I believe it was the Messiah holding the show together for XPW, as I personally believe that the quality of the product was about 80% slop. It's kind of funny in retrospect how the shows coincidentally began to decline as hard as they did after he left. In CZW, the Messiah became a 3-time World Heavyweight Champion and won the Iron Man Championship once, becoming the only man to hold the world title in both CZW and XPW. July 20th, 2002, XPW held the Baptized in Blood 3 event at the ECW Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with Shane Douglas making his debut for the promotion, challenging Johnny Webb for the world title. This began an effort from XPW to fully relocate to Philadelphia, and they even rented out the ECW Arena to be their permanent home, a move that fucked over a lot of independent companies, primarily CZW, who had been using the venue for their own shows at this point in time. To make the show feel packed, they paid out a ton of free tickets on top of what it was already paid for, and at the show, Douglas won the title and began what was supposed to be a new era for XPW. Something else that did happen at the show, those free tickets that I mentioned a moment ago were used by 2 wrestlers that night, Sick Nick Mondo and the Messiah himself. What a great guy. He came back from heaven to grace XPW with his presence. Anyways, word went around the locker room about Welch being at the show, much to Rob Black's chagrin. Less than 2 weeks after this occurred, one of the most bizarre incidents in pro wrestling took place. August 1st, 2002, 11 days after the Baptize in Blood event. Welch was at his home in California playing video games when two men would enter his apartment. Welch greeted them as he assumed they were friends of his roommate. However, they indeed were not friends, and both men immediately went after Welch. One man had garden shears and proceeded to cut the thumb off of Welch's right hand. They intended to get the other thumb, but Welch fought back, only to get a fish tank to the dome for his troubles. Incapacitated, the attackers tried to then undo Welch's pants to presumably cut off his penis, and this is what Welch believes, and it's honestly kind of difficult to think otherwise. But after they couldn't get his pants off, they tried to stab him in the groin, but the fucking idiots kept stabbing his leg. They continued the attack by hitting Welch with furniture, but after realizing that they just might be causing a scene and drawing unwanted attention to themselves, this is when they decided to leave, but not before they take the thumb with him. There was nothing else taken from the apartment, and it's believed from the start that they were there specifically for Welch. Police believe it to be in relation to pro wrestling, and if you have been paying even a modicum of attention to this entire story so far, you probably have the same thoughts as Welch, myself, and many other fans who have heard this story countless times over the past 23 years as to who might have had a hand, pun intended, in this attack. It's very important for me to note here that Rob Black was never charged with anything in regards to this attack, and therefore I am not saying that he clear-cut did commit this crime. I don't think I should have to explain this in detail, but I've dealt with my fair share of adults since starting this channel, so I feel I should probably take my precautions and not having to deal with them. Welch recovered in relatively quick time and returned to CZW shortly after the incident, where he had this to say about Rob Black as well as the de-thumbing.
Don't even say that fat fuck's name. That motherfucker can kiss my ass, lick my balls, and go back and live with his fucking father back in Rochester, fucking New York. Again, I am not fucking pointing fingers and being very calm, and I'm not saying who did this, but you know something? Everybody tunes on America's Most Wanted, September 21st, and maybe you'll get a good idea.
The funny thing about that last part was that he is not bullshitting. Fox ran an episode of America's Most Wanted on September 21st, 2002, and featured a segment on what happened to Welch weeks prior. In the piece, they didn't really paint Rob in the best light.
In the weeks leading up to the attack, the Messiah had publicly mocked his former wrestling promoter, Rob Black. He claimed to have had an affair with Black's wife, porn star Lizzie Borden. Did that feud spill over from the ring into real life? That's what we wanted to ask Rob Black. But when we showed up at his office, Black's staff locked us out.
Black was interviewed by Vice in 2014, where he was asked about the incident, to which he said the following: "Wrestling is never what you believe. We had people bought into the story and got publicity out of it. You have to understand that my goal was to be the most hated man in the world. I was the ultimate heel. I needed to be more hated than Vince McMahon." Well, it's kind of hard to be more hated than Vince McMahon at this point, Robert. And while he wasn't charged or even a person of interest in the case against Welch, Black and his wife Lizzie Borden were indicted in 2003 for distributing obscene pornographic material with titles that I don't think I can even share on this video without getting my content removed. They are out there with the names being placed in different articles, including the Vice article from 2014 if you do wish to seek it out. As a result of mounting legal fees, Black closed XPW in 2004 due to not being able to maintain the cost of running the company. They were in court for 6 years before eventually taking a plea deal in 2009, which saw both Sakari and Romano sentenced to 1 year and 1 day in prison, with both being released in 2010. They eventually separated in 2013, and I honestly have no idea what Lizzie has been up to since. If someone does know, then feel free to share in the comments. As for Rob Black, he's done a bit of everything. He had a radio show where he just chatted about whatever. He owned a restaurant for a little while in Rochester, New York called American Cheeseburger, great name by the way, which is now permanently closed, and he even reopened XPW in 2021 following the sudden surge in popularity after Vice covered XPW in an episode of Dark Side of the Ring. The promotion is still going, although not as strong as it once was, and the momentum of Dark Side was not carrying over. It's still there. Random, but as I was doing research on American Cheeseburger to get further confirmation that it closed, I clicked on their Facebook and saw that Black was using that page to promote XPW events until the end of 2023. I went on there expecting to see his Freedom Fries or whatever they're called, and instead I see J-Love is coming to Christmas. Why am I not surprised? As for Welch, he continued his run in CZW for a while and participated in one of my favorite CZW matches to date at Cage of Death 5, which I already covered on this channel. He retired officially from professional wrestling in 2017 and is presumably just chilling at home with his family. In a genre where wrestlers are generalized as being not talented or needing weapons to get over, I personally feel like the Messiah is one of the most well-rounded performers in deathmatch history. Able to do a little bit of everything while not shying away from the messy spots when needed, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone of equal skill in my opinion. And the crazy thing is, he did a lot of that shit without his right thumb. Rob Black has both of his and all he could do is shove them both up his ass. Okay, that's enough out of me before I start dropping thumbs myself. But yeah, that is how the Messiah lost his thumb. What did you think? Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you thought about this video, as I look for all feedback, positive or negative. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already, so you do not miss out on any future videos. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace out.